Hey everybody, this is Russ from Metro Game Core. Today we're going to do a starter guide for Beacon. This is a front-end launcher for Android. So once you've installed all your emulator apps and got them all configured, this is an app that will put everything together and make it look nice and pretty. And the beauty of Beacon is that it is ultra simple to set up once you get a hang of the configuration process, which is what we're going to focus on in this video. And even though it is very simple to set up, it is surprisingly deep in terms of what you can do with it as well. And so we're going to explore all that stuff in this video. I think we're going to have a lot of fun along the way. So grab your favorite snack and drink. Let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, let's start by showing off what Beacon is going to look like when fully set up and how it compares to the other popular Android launchers. And for this section, we're going to use the Retroid Pocket Mini version 2 with the Beacon launcher, of course, but then also Emulation Station Desktop Edition and Daijisho. And Beacon costs $3, Daijisho is free, and Emulation Station Desktop Edition is $6. Now on its own, Beacon is a pretty simple interface. You will have your games listed up top of this menu bar, and then you can navigate through your games within each of these different tabs. And the way you tab over is just using the left and right bumpers, and so you can go through each of your systems here, and then once you find one, you can choose it and then launch it. And that's really about it. The game will just start right up once you have it all configured. And also, when you exit a game, it'll just take you right back to the launcher, and so there you are. Now, there are multiple ways you can view your files. This is called the gallery view, but you can change that here. You can have it show as a horizontal or vertical list, and then also you have the grid option. This is the one I use the most often because I like to see all of my games at once. Furthermore, you also have the bubbles function, so this kind of looks like a PS Vita. I know a lot of people like to use this with the Odin 2 Mini to kind of complete that PS Vita look. Now, in addition to navigating through your systems, you can do per game configurations if you long press them, so you can add them to your favorites or you can edit the configuration as well. Here you can scrape your box art or change the title, or you can also change which emulator you want to launch a specific game. You also have full access to your Android apps, either by just tapping this button on the right, which will bring them all up, or you can also just actually add the Android apps as one of your tabs up above. And that's essentially it when it comes to the look and feel of Beacon. It's very simple, and it's really just a matter of, how quickly you want to get in and out of your games, and the setup for this can be also very fast. Next up, we'll talk about Daijisho. So this one is a free emulator app, and this one has been around for quite some time. This one has a very similar setup to Beacon in that you have your different tabs for your different systems, and so you can navigate through between them, then choose your system, and then go and navigate your game from there. You also have the ability to change your different themes, or what they call wallpapers in this app, to kind of change the overall look of things. It is worth noting that Daijisho has not been updated significantly over the past couple of years. The developer has been very busy. And so as a result, some unique aspect ratios, like on the Retroid Pocket Mini version 2, it doesn't scale correctly. You can see that the Nintendo logo is being cut off, and that's just one of the unfortunate side effects of the fact that this hasn't been updated in some time. But there are some other really great things about it. For example, we have a widgets tab. So within here, you can do things like check your retro achievements and see, what you've earned most recently. And you have some other widgets like, starting the most recently played game or just launching a random game. You've also got full access to your Android apps right here, much like within Beacon. And so, yeah, this is a pretty nice mixture between having a game launcher experience, but then also being able to get in and use it like an Android platform. And of course, the best thing about Daijisho is that it's completely free, and I've got a full setup video for this one as well. I'll leave a link down below. Now, the launcher that I personally use the most is Emulation Station Desktop Edition. I usually show this in each of my videos. This one's the most expensive of all the apps. It's about $6, but I also think it's the most robust, and once you learn how it works, it really gives you a lot of options. This one, I think, has the most console-like feel. You really do feel like you're navigating through a full-on retro system, and so I really do enjoy that. And there are a ton of different themes that you can download and install, which really can enhance and change the look and feel of your overall console. I've also made videos about this one. I will leave one link down below, but one of the biggest aspects of this one is that it can have dynamic collections. What this means is that when you go on your microSD card and add and remove games, they are going to appear instantly when you start up ESDE. So for example, you take out an entire system. You decide, you know what? I don't want to play NES anymore. You can just remove those ROMs and it won't show up anymore. Along those same lines, if you delete or add a game from your NES folder, it will show up dynamically here. launcher. Either it'll remove it or add a new one. As a part of scraping all of your media, it will also scrape videos if you would like, which I think is a really nice enhancement. You'll be able to see the video gameplay before you start up the game to decide whether or not it's going to be a good fit. It also has a screensaver function. By pressing the Y button, it'll show all those scraped videos, and you can kind of navigate through them. It's kind of like shopping for a new retro game to play, and once you find one and you decide you want to play it, you can just press the A button and it'll actually launch the game right then and there. And I think that's actually a pretty cool feature too. So even though Emulation Station Desktop Edition is my favorite of all the launchers, I think that there is some nice simplicity to the overall Beacon experience. You know, there are some things that are a little bit difficult on this one. For example, adding new systems that are not already supported does require you to download and add a new file. Same thing with like adding Android apps and games. That has to be done via a specific tool within Emulation Station Desktop Edition, which I cover in my videos as well, but it does take a little bit of extra work compared to the others. And so I think that's probably the main draw of Beacon itself, is that it's a very simple setup once you understand the mechanics of how it all works. So let's go ahead and start setting it up from scratch with a different device. Now, before we dive in, one thing worth noting is that this guide is going to assume that you've already set up all of your emulators. So you've gone through and installed your emulators, you've added your ROMs to your Android-based device, and you've associated with them together. I've got a full Android handheld starter guide, which I will leave linked down below. So the assumption here is you've already gone through and done all that stuff first. We're going to use Beacon to basically put this all together to make it look pretty and seamless. Okay, to start, you're going to need to purchase Beacon Game Launcher, which you can do in the Google Play Store. And like I mentioned already, it costs $3. And one of the great things about this is that once you buy it one time, it's associated with your Google account. So no matter what Android-based handheld you use in the future, as long as you use that same Google account, you won't have to re-buy it. You just have to re-download it. So we're going to set all of this up with my Retroid Pocket 5, which you're seeing on screen here via screen capture. I've also set up a USB mouse so that you can follow my cursor to make it a little bit easier to follow along. And first point of order here is to go into the Play Store and download and install the Beacon Game Launcher. I've already purchased it on my account, so it's just a matter of choosing it to install. And so here it is up in the top left, so I'm just going to choose it, and this will be the screen that you'll be greeted with. Now, right off the bat, it's going to ask you to configure new platforms. We will do these one by one, but let's go into the settings first and talk about what we can find within here. Once we add our platforms, here is where we'll be able to navigate through. We'll do that later. But then also under scraping, this is where you can pull your different box art. By default, it's going to pull from the gamesdatabase.net and Screenscraper and IGDB. If you want to scrape a little bit faster with Screenscraper, then you can add your account credentials right here. It is free to sign up on this website, screenscraper.fr, and if you join their Patreon, it'll make it even faster to scrape those images, so it's all going to be up to you. So I've went ahead and added my own credentials because I do have a Patreon account with them, and so that's why it says remove account right here. Now, the reason why I wanted to show off this scraping option before we even add our systems is because I think that the SteamGridDB.com option is one worth considering. And the reason why I like this platform so much is because the user artwork is really, really good. So if we search for a game like Super Mario Bros. 3, in addition to your typical artwork, like, you know, something you would see on original NES box art, you've got other customizable options too, and it just really expands what you can do with your Beacon launcher. And so this is why I like using the SteamGridDB so much, is because we have a lot of different options here, which you cannot find on those other platforms. It's also completely free to use, but you do have to log in and create an account, which you can do by just associating your Steam account with this website. Now, when logging into the SteamGridDB website, I do recommend doing it directly on your device, and that's because we need to copy a specific line of code in order to paste it into Beacon, so it's just better to do it on the device itself. So go into your Chrome browser here and then log into SteamGridDB. It's a very simple process. Just go into the menu here, then click on the login. It's going to bring you over to Steam and then ask you to log in with your Steam credentials. Once you do that, it's going to ask you to confirm the sign in, and that's it. It'll take you back to SteamGridDB. And it'll keep you logged into your account. Once you're logged in, just go over to the top menu here, click on your profile, and then go into Preferences. And once you're here, go over to the API tab, and you'll have an API key. If you don't have one already, you need to create it, but then after that, you'll get a string of code. I'm going to blur mine out for obvious reasons, but what you can do now is long press on it, then select Copy. We're going to need this code to paste into Beacon here in a moment. Once you've got it copied, click on the Add Account option here, and then it'll give you the option to paste the API key. So that's what I'm going to do right there. Then I'm going to select Add Account. So now we've got it set up with this Steam Grid DB account, which is awesome. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to drag it up to be my top priority when it comes to scraping. From there, I'm going to use my screen scraper as my second one because I do like this for box art, and we're good to go with this section. For the other stuff like preferences, like how we're going to change the look and feel of it, let's do that after we add some platforms. So now that we've actually set up all of our scraping, let's add some platforms to Beacon. And this is all very simple. We're going to click on the plus button and we'll get this menu here. Now, the way that you add games in Beacon is one platform or system at a time. So if we click on this, you can see we've got a bunch of different options here. We're going to wait a second before doing Android. Let's start with Nintendo 3DS. Once we've got the platform selected, it's going to ask what emulator app are you going to use to open it with. We're going to use Azahar. From there, it's going to ask, where is your ROM folder? So we're going to click on this, and then it's going to navigate to our file system. And I know mine's on my SD card in a folder named ROMs, and then within that, a folder named N3DS. Once I've navigated to that, I can select use this folder and then allow, and then it'll show right here. So my SD card, ROMs, then N3DS. Below that, it's going to ask, what is your box art aspect ratio? Now, by default, it's going to give you the aspect ratio of the Nintendo 3DS box art. But if you're going to be using something like Steam Grid DB, you'll want to change that to 2:3. And because I've set up Steam Grid DB as being my primary scraper, I'm going to select that one, then I'm going to hit Add Platform. The first time you do it, it's going to ask you to enable notifications for sync progress, so you can hit Allow for that. And that's it. You will see that the 3DS section has now been added, and it'll take a moment, but it'll start scraping all of your art. Okay, so after a couple minutes here, this is what it's going to look like. I've scraped all of my box art at this point, and now, I can kind of navigate through, and it's pretty cool too because it's showing all that Steam Grid DB box art, which is very different than your typical box art. So I really like the look and feel of this altogether. Now, let's say you don't like some of this scraping. For example, here with Ninja Turtles, it's showing an Xbox 360 logo, which is a little bit odd. So what we're going to do here is long press on the game, then we're going to go into Edit, and then within here, we're going to go to Scrape Box Art. And after a minute, it's going to show you all the different options from the other databases. So we've got the Xbox 360 one that we just had, but if we scroll down, you can see screenscraper.fr just has like the common box art. And then same thing with the games DB. And then finally, IGDB kind of has like the perfect mix where it's showing the logo in a larger kind of format, but then also it doesn't have that Xbox 360. So I'm going to choose this one here. And so now that we've selected that, I can go back and you can see that, yeah, now we've got the Ninja Turtles here without the Xbox 360 logo. So I think that looks a little bit better. And so this is one of the many things you can do once you've added a platform. So I've already added that Steam Grid DB kind of look to it. I think it looks really nice. And then we can also change out the box art if we would like. Now let's say for our next system, we're going to do Game Boy, and we don't want to have this fancy box art. We just want the original stuff. So let me show you how to set that up. We're going to go back into our settings here, into scraping, and I'm going to put screenscraper.fr as my primary account. This database usually just uses regular box art as opposed to custom ones, so now the next time we add a platform and scrape, it's going to pull from this primarily instead. And so now I'll go over to the platform section, and then I'm going to add a new platform by pressing on the plus button, and then we'll scroll down to the Nintendo Game Boy. This time around, we're going to pick our player app, and this one I run via RetroArch, so this will be a little bit more complicated. So we'll have to pick that app, and then a new pop-up will show up down below asking us what RetroArch core we're going to use. So we're going to select from the drop-down menu, and then I use the Gambate core for Game Boy. So I'm going to scroll down to that and then choose it. After that, it's going to be the same thing we did previously. We're going to pick our ROMs folder. So I'm going to go back here to my SD card, then ROMs, and then I'm going to find my GB folder. Once I'm there, I'm going to hit use this folder and then allow, and that's about it. Now under the box art, it does automatically say 1:1. That is the box art of the original Game Boy console, so I'm going to leave it as it is. So now that we've got this all filled out, I'm going to hit Add Platform, and that's it. If we go back into the regular menu, you will now see there's a Game Boy tab. And so after a few minutes, this is what it's going to look like. We have the actual Game Boy artwork, which you may prefer over that custom Steam Grid DB. So you've got a lot of customization options here, and it really depends on what you want to do. And so that essentially is how you add your different platforms to Beacon. And we've already done 3DS and Game Boy, but you really just follow that routine for everything else. Now, one great thing about Beacon is that we have instant integration with our Android apps. If we just click on the apps button here, it's going to show all of them, so we can just jump right in. But let's say that you want to actually navigate through them like you would any other system. So you want to have your Android games showing up here up top. So let me show you the way that I like to set mine up. I go into the settings here. I go back into scraping. I want to make sure that my Steam Grid DB is my top one because I think this box art looks really good with Android games. Then I'll go into platforms and then hit plus, and once I'm in here, I'm going to select Android. Now at this point, it's going to ask you to choose all the apps that you want to mark as games. That's going to be things like Balatro and Dead Cells and so on. So just go through all your different apps and then pick the ones that you want to actually show in that menu. Once you have them all selected under the boxart aspect ratio, I'm going to do the Steam Grid DB ratio. And that's it. Now I can press add platform and there it goes. So if I go back into the main menu, we will now see that there's an Android section. At first, it's going to show just the icons that come with the app itself, but after a minute, it'll start scraping them. So you can see here we have Balatro. I really like the box art on this one. And let's wait a minute to see what the other ones look like. And so now that they've scraped, this is what everything looks like. I think that a lot of these look really good, but I've also noticed that some of these are the incorrect game. For example, I don't have a game called Immortal Defense. If we long click on this and then go into edit, you can see that the app name is actually Diablo Immortal, but it scraped it incorrectly. So we want to change this. Instead of it saying Immortal Defense, I'm going to change it to Diablo Immortal. From there, I'm going to hit done, and then I'm going to save the game. And now that we've got the new name for it, I'm going to long press on it again and then do edit. And this time I'm going to scrape the box art. And now this time around, it's actually showing me the Diablo Immortal artwork. So I'm going to select this one. I think this one looks the best. I'm going to hit yes to replace the box art. Now when we go back, you can see that it shows Diablo Immortal and it also changed its order. So it's in alphabetical order and moved it up here. Let's do another example. Halls of Torment for me is too dark. I don't really like the look of this. So I'm going to edit and see what other options we have. Yeah, so some of these definitely look a lot better. I'm going to pick this one right here. I think that one's going to stand out more. So we'll select that, then go back, and yeah, now we have that artwork. So it's very easy to change these up. Here's another game that is incorrect. I don't have SSX on this device. If I go into edit, you can see it's the Sky game, which is like Sky Children of Light. So I'm just going to change it to the word Sky, hit done, and then again, I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to long press again and go to edit and then scrape the box art. Let's see what pops up. Okay, so this is all over the place. I've got Ocarina of Time, SSX, and this other game too. So obviously it's having a hard time finding this game. So let's change it to Sky Children of Light. Same thing, we'll hit done and then save, and then let's go and scrape it one more time. Okay, there we go. Now it actually found the game, and man, some of this box art looks great. So I'm gonna pick this one right here and then replace it. And I think we are now good to go. So there we go. It says Sky Children of Light. And yeah, all these other ones look pretty good here. I might change out the Suika game, but other than that, I'm really happy with how these all look, especially for being Android games. I like the fact that they look so cool. I'm going to go with the Japanese one right here. I think that one looks pretty neat. And there we go. If you didn't know, Suika means watermelon in Japanese. Now you do. Okay, so already we're getting a pretty fancy setup here. We've got, actual box art. We've got our fancy box art here with 3DS and Android, and really, you can just set this up with the rest of your systems one by one. And just to verify, all this stuff is going to launch correctly as long as you have your backend set up properly. So if I click on Adventure Island, it should jump right into Game Boy. Look at that. I've already set up things like my retro achievements, so those are popping up as well. And yeah, that's about it. I can start up my game. I can press select and start to exit out of the game and then go right back into the menu. And so now that we have an idea of how to set up our systems and, customize our box art and everything else, let's talk a little bit more about customizing the look and feel of Beacon itself. So back in the settings menu, there's a preference section. Within here, we can change out our theme. For example, if we want a dark theme, you can do that. And I think that actually looks really good too. So this is what it'll look like instead. And if you have like an OLED device, this will look really nice and black. So it'll really depend on what you're going for in terms of overall look, but let's keep it on dark mode for now. Below that, we have our theme color. So we have emerald set by default. It's going to be green, but we have like amber and ruby and orchid. Let's do the ruby one. That's going to be red. And so now you can see that the name of the game is in red and also the waves in the background are red too. In addition to the theme and the color, we can change out our background style. So this is going to be those waves that we saw in the background. We can change them to bubbles or floating rectangles, fireflies, and so on. Honestly, it's really hard to see in the dark mode, especially with an OLED device. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to set it back to light, and then let's pick a different one. Let's do PlayStation. I like these glyphs. And so now you can see we have these little red glyphs that are going around, kind of reminiscent of a PS1. And so you do have a lot of different ways that you can customize the look and feel of your device depending on how you want everything to look. Now, in addition to just having this gallery view, like I mentioned before, you can go in and change it to a list view if you'd like to see the games like this, or you can change it to a grid view to see them all at once. I think this one personally looks the best. And then you also have the bubbles view. This is going to give you that PS Vita style look and feel too. This honestly looks pretty awesome as well. So I'm going to use the grid interface like this just because I like the look of seeing all my games at once. And I think it looks pretty cool because it scales for each of the different aspect ratios of your box art too. So I feel like this is an easy way to navigate through all of my systems at a much more quick pace compared to having to go through the gallery. Now, in addition to some of these theme changes, you can change out the font if you would like. You've got a bunch of different options here, and you can also change out your front menu. So if you want to have the bottom bar showing up, or you want to have the Now and the Favorites tab, it's all up to you. Now is essentially your most recently played games. If you want to jump into those, you can do that. And then Favorites is going to be obviously Favorites. Let me show you how to set this up. If we go into the favorites section, you can see there is nothing here just yet. So let's add something. Let's go into Game Boy. Let's say, okay, Donkey Kong. I want to add this to the favorites. You just click on the favorites right here after long pressing on it. And you can do that with all your other games as well. So let's say Dead Cells. We want to add that as a favorite too. There we go. If we go into favorites now, we can see we have Dead Cells and Donkey Kong. The only issue with this is that it's going to make them all the same aspect ratio. You can see here that it's 1:1, which looks great for Donkey Kong, but not so much with Dead Cells. It looks a little squished. So if you'd like, you can change that up. You can go into these settings again, go into preferences, and then down below it has an aspect ratio for your now and your favorites. Let's do Steam Grid DB because that's probably what I'm going to use for the majority of my systems. And so now when we go back into our favorites tab, you can see Dead Cells looks great, and Donkey Kong now has a buffer at the top and bottom, which I still think looks better than squishing Dead Cells. So I'm going to keep it like that. Now, once you have your system set up, one thing worth noting is that Beacon is not a dynamic collection. That means that if you remove or add a game, you have to physically resync everything. So let's do an example here really quickly. I'm going to go into the ROMs folder here, and now I'm going to go into my Game Boy folder because I've already added that. And let's say I've decided I no longer want to have Bust-A-Move 2 in my collection. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to delete it. So I'm going to delete this game, and I'm no longer able to launch it. However, if I go back to Beacon and I go into my Game Boy folder, you can see that it's right here. And if I click on it, it's going to actually try to launch it, and nothing is going to happen because RetroArch cannot find this game. And so what I want to do is physically remove this entry. I've got two different ways to do that. I can long press on the game itself, go into Edit, and then scroll all the way down and select Delete, but that's only going to remove the entry that one time for that one game, and that might get tedious if you've added or removed a bunch of games at once. So instead, the best way to do that is to go into your settings, go back to Platforms, then Game Boy, and just hit this refresh button right here. That's going to resync everything again, and the next time that we go back into our Game Boy folder, look at that, Bust-A-Move 2 is no longer there. And so that's a quick word of caution. If you happen to add or remove games from any of your different game folders, you do need to go into the settings and then resync each of these one by one. Same thing if you, say, for example, want to try out a different emulator app altogether. Say, for example, in Nintendo 3DS, something new and fancy comes out and you decide you don't want to use Azahar. So instead, you would then change that within here and then hit save. And like I mentioned before, you can also do per game configurations. So if you have Azahar already set up, but you try something else out too, and you figure that this game works better with that app instead, you can long press on the game, then go into Edit, and then down at the bottom, there's the platform settings. So you can then choose a different app to launch that specific game. Okay, two other quick pointers before we wrap up here. Number one is that you can change the order of your systems by just dragging and dropping. So if you want to have Android at the very top, and then say maybe Game Boy, then 3DS, this is really cool. And this is a lot harder to do on the other systems. So I love the fact that it's just a matter of dragging and dropping to change out your order. And so you can really customize this top tab if you want. So it goes Android, then Game Boy, then 3DS, and so on. So if you think about it, you can collect your systems together by like console maker. So Nintendo, then Sega, or you could do it chronologically, or maybe all your handheld systems, then your home console systems, and so on. And the final tip is that if you want to make this your home launcher, that means that when you start up your device, it goes directly into Beacon. We can do that very easily. You need to go into your Android settings, then go into the apps section. Once you're inside the apps section, scroll down until you find default apps, click on that, and then under home app, change this to Beacon. And that's it. From now on, when you start up your handheld, it'll go directly into Beacon, so you can start navigating through and playing your games immediately. And the other great thing about that too is that you can already have access to all of your Android apps if you need it too. So you're really not losing anything by making Beacon your primary launcher. Okay, so that's a wrap on setting up Beacon as a front-end launcher. I love the fact that you can set it up in just a few minutes, but it's also surprisingly complex. Like you can add things like the Steam Grid DB images, which I think are some of the best box arts that you can find out there. So I love the fact that that's integrated in here. I also love that we have so many different Android front-end launcher options, including things like Beacon and Emulation Station and Daijisho, but then others I didn't talk about in this video, like Console Launcher and Reset Collection, as well as Launchbox. So we have a bunch of different options, and I love the fact that Beacon is one of those as well. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you use Beacon as your primary launcher, or do you like something else with your Android-based handheld? As always, thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you found this helpful, and we will see you next time. Happy gaming.